no matter where it is in Australia, it all boils back down into one, into like it's the same, the same source, of creation. So rainbow serpent for one is a big creature, that when the land was flat, he just burrowed himself into the ground and underneath, and then he created all these lagoons and created all the mountains and hills and the forests and all that. Well, that's kind of all through Australia.
Lors de mon voyage en Australie, j'ai vu des paysages sublimes, des animaux étranges et étonnants, des couchers de soleil flamboyants. Tout ressemblait aux cartes postales que les voyageurs ramènent du bout du monde. Mais ce n'est pas cette Australie que je vais vous raconter. Le Kookaburra a un chant qui ressemble à un rire empreint d'une moquerie toute humaine. C'est cet oiseau que j'ai entendu lors de ma première aube australienne, en compagnie d'Alain, mon ami rencontré là-bas. Il m'a raconté avec malice que le Kookaburra, en riant, se moque de ceux qui font trop de bruit dans le bush. En arrivant, je ne savais rien des aborigènes et de leurs 40 000 ans d'histoire. Ce voyage n'a pas fait de moi un ethnologue confirmé, mais certains mots ont commencé à s'enrichir de sens au fil des rencontres, et un immense respect à grandir. Une envie de raconter aussi, de partager cette parole qu'ils m'ont donnée à entendre. J'ai rencontré Kirstine dans le bar où elle est serveuse. C'est une jeune fille moderne et chaleureuse, une vraie citadine. Elle a senti mon désir d'approcher la culture aborigène et accepte le jeu de l'interview. Kirstine me prévient pourtant qu'elle est loin des aborigènes qui vivent selon la tradition. Un peu arrogant, je pense pouvoir lui faire dire ce que peut-être elle ignore. L'impatience est un défaut qu'il va me falloir corriger. Les aborigènes ont un rapport si particulier au temps. Alain m'a averti. Il faut laisser les choses se faire.
Yeah, Dad comes from like the Mossman area, and Mum comes from the Tablelands, and it's like two tribes. From where my mum is, it's two tribes like together, because there's like one tribe living at like the bottom of the range and another tribe living on the top. Two totally different names, but they used to mix with each other. I used to go down, up and down the range all the time. Yeah, I learned little words and that, but the last two people that could speak like my mum's side of the language fluently was like my great grandmother, who died September. I think it was August, September last year. And her daughter is still alive now, but yeah, she's got no one to speak the language with now. So that was on my mum's side of the family. That was the last two who could speak the language fluently. So once the older people die, that's it. Like there is no more chance. Like all those Dreamtime stories will go, and any little any little stories they have about life and that are going to go too. So yeah, it probably is up to like the younger generation now to get in there while there are still older people alive. Get in there and get all the information that we can get from them. even before, you know, the ones that are alive now, even before they start going, you know, mentally insane, so they can't, you know, when they don't remember anything. There's a lot more programs in schools these days about you know, Aboriginal lifestyles and that. You know, I worked at the high school for 6 months, and we did a full-on program about, you know, the Aboriginals, how they, you know, made their huts, made their dilly bags, you know, cooked eels, fish traps and things like that. And that was good because then the book they made went, you know, right through the school, and people, you know, have learnt about it, and everything's written down in there. So yeah, we should be getting out there. No, I'm guilty of that for forever. I was saying, you know, like I've been wanting to get a video and go up and you know, like film my grandmother while she was alive, because when she died she was 111 years old, you know. So she had, you know, she was here like before the turn of the century, and yeah, forever I kept saying, have to get a camera, get up there, you know, just get some of her stories off her, you know, like she had some fantastic stories, like one of the rivers up near Innisfail, she remembers going down it as a kid, and there's this rock with a big, you know, hollow in it, and it's just blood-stained red from where they used to kill people in it, you know. So she had all these great stories, and sad to say, yeah, they've gone now with her, you know, like no one's gotten the stories, and, you know, it's more or less like a piece of history dying, you know, with her going with all of that, you know. So yeah, a lesson to be learned, you know.
Je me dis qu'un bon moyen de comprendre les aborigènes, c'est de commencer par observer cette nature sublime et étrange avec laquelle ils n'ont cessé de vivre en harmonie. Ayers Rock, Uluru, de son nom aborigène, rocher mythique et sacré, me semble un bon point de départ. J'en parle à Alain qui semble réticent et me dit que je vais au-devant d'une grande déception. Alice Spring, l'étape obligée pour Ayers Rock. Un nid à touristes et un ghetto pour les aborigènes. Colonisation, dépossession, tentative d'éradication, ce sont des mots qui sont trop souvent dans les bagages de l'homme civilisé. Comme si la peur de l'autre et de ses différences nous effraie au point de vouloir le faire disparaître. À voir de nombreux aborigènes errer au bord de la rivière, ivres, dépenaillés, je me demande ce qui reste de ces gens magnifiques dont m'a parlé Alain. Entre Kirsten, qui n'a plus de lien avec sa culture, et la misère ambiante, il semble que la colonisation de l'Australie a accompli son œuvre. Mais je n'en suis qu'au début de mon voyage, alors haut les cœurs, le pays est grand. Je m'entretiens avec Sean, qui s'occupe d'une des seules boutiques d'art aborigène dont les bénéfices reviennent aux aborigènes.
They exploit Aboriginal culture, you know, overseas. People much prefer to come to Australia instead of going to Africa or something else. Australia puts this image, come and see Aboriginal people, Aboriginal culture. When they get here, people, where's the Aboriginal people? I'm not satisfied. Australian government get negative feedbacks in the tourism industry, which is the biggest draw card. Tourism is the biggest industry in the world. And Australia is one of the major big tourism markets in the world. And people, 75% of people that come to Australia come to see Aboriginal culture. 25 is only to go to Barrier Reef, Sydney, Melbourne. You can always see a city. And you know, there's just not enough. You know, too much exploitation. Aboriginal people got to start grabbing hold of the culture, and it's one of the main reasons why Aboriginal people don't share the culture, because our culture has been exploited too much, too long. You see? Well, many years ago they say our people uncivilized. We have the world's oldest, most of the world's oldest technology. Aerodynamics, cremation, mummification, rock art, axe, fire making, language. We can't afford not to share our culture. People want to learn. We continue to not share it. People want to, the culture will die out. We've got to come out, balance it up. The relationship we have with the land, we have with our family. The family relationships we have with the family, we have with the land. That reinforces the land with the family. That's why the culture has survived so long. There's a link. The chain must not be broken, or we are nothing. Our dream time is our interpretation of the creation of the world and everything in it, all its eternal existence, everything we know, plants, animals, natural elements, celestial bodies, us, created during our Alchira. Alchira refers to the dream time or creation time in our language here. Yeah, many cultures have different interpretation. We've got our own interpretation. We believe in our ancestors coming from the land and travelling all over the land, fighting, hunting, loving, and creating many things. And where they rose up out of the earth, they come from the earth, these places are known to be sacred sites, significant, very important, spiritual and physical. And then they went back to the earth. Where they laid to rest, our ancestors, these places are known to be sacred, significant sites, very important places. It could be a plant, it could be an animal, it could be a geographical landform. And so we come from the earth, we go back to the earth. I pick up this grain of sand here, okay, that's where I start, and this is where I end. The dirt comes from the land, it goes back to the earth. We were natural environmentalists. We continue to do that. Everything that we've done in traditional times, we still do it today. Traditional custom law, traditional hunting techniques, implements, weapons. But we believe we were always here. We never come from anywhere. Born directly from our dream time, from our ancestors. We are living incarnations of our ancestors. Animals, plants, humans. Humans into animals, animals into plants, plants into humans. Humans into animals, animals into plants, plants into humans. An animal and plant got very tied, in fact, to the earth. The human form stayed on. That's why we believe we are direct descendants of our ancestors. The dream time is forever. The past, the present, the future is one. What is time? It's irrelevant to us. It's not important. We go by seasons, by ceremonies.
Je suis écœuré par ce séjour à Ayers Rock. Je pense à Kirsten et à Sean. Avaient-ils vraiment besoin de connaître les bienfaits de la civilisation? Et pourtant, j'ai senti chez Sean une force, une spiritualité derrière la froideur de son discours. Je me fie encore trop aux apparences. Après tout, la porte commence peut-être à s'ouvrir. Je rencontre Dawn et Janice à Mossman. Elles sont sœurs, elles sont belles et fières. L'histoire qu'elles me livrent me met KO. Elles font partie des nombreux enfants à avoir été enlevés à leur famille. La Stolen Generation. C'est un des actes de violence commis envers les aborigènes sur lesquels le gouvernement australien pratique un silence honteux. Au fond de moi, je suis gêné par ce que je représente. Un touriste blanc, un colon, un voleur d'enfants. Mais il n'y a pas de colère dans les propos de Dawn et Janice. Et j'ai mieux à faire que de porter la culpabilité d'actes que je n'ai pas commis. Écouter et transmettre, par exemple.
The stolen generation, I guess, the government had set up I suppose in my lifetime, because I was taken off my parents and placed in a dormitory. The mission was set up on the Daintree River. Previous before that, there were camps set around in Mossman and further up into the hills up at near Woodjall, which is north of Mossman. And what happened was the camps were all closed down. The police went in and took the people from the original camps and thought it was better that they were brought down onto the onto the flat land, where I suppose that they could watch over them and keep an eye on them. What was set up by the government then was that half-caste children, light-skinned Aboriginal children, were taken off their parents and sent away to places like Palm Island and Yarrabah, and just places a long way from their original campsites. So my father was and his mother was picked up, and by force, the police always used force in whatever they when they were in contact with the Aboriginal people, they always used force. So they went with guns, and the people had no idea or had never come across guns before, so that really terrified them. And he was taken over to Palm Island with his mother and had to grow up there. His mother died when he was 7 over there, and so he was placed in a boys' home. So I guess he was really our first stolen generation experience in our family. When my father came back from Palm Island, as a teenager he came back, and in the meantime my mum and him they had arranged marriage, so I mean she was to marry him and he was to marry her. When they were married, they actually was placed into the mission down at the Daintree. Now down there was a dormitory built, and it was a girls' dormitory. The parents had no say in who was taken into the dormitories. They were just the missionaries that were there then helped the government. They worked together, and the churches and the government worked very much together. And girls were placed in there. So in the time that I was in there, we weren't allowed to have contact with our parents unless we were given permission. So I couldn't, even though my parents and my family lived over the way a little bit, we weren't allowed to have contact with them. Now, I realise growing up today that it's probably because we were not allowed to speak our language or even acknowledge that we were Aboriginals, and so even the people that were on the missions, who were old Aboriginals, and like my mum and dad, my mum knew hardly any English but could speak her language well because she grew up with it. They were not allowed to utter a word of language or practice their culture. And I just feel, looking back, that that's probably why that was just another way they could set up how the culture would die out. They were trying to get Aboriginals not to be Aboriginals. The dormitory had a matron in there set up. A matron was in charge. Most matrons were very cruel. You've never found a loving matron, but very cruel. I was only young, 4 or 5, but I remember as I grew a bit older, how cruel they were to the older girls that were in the dormitory. The punishments that they used on them were very cruel. The girls that were in the dormitory, the only work that they were, the employment they were to find was to just do housework. That's all they were expected to do, was go out and work for the farmers and do housework, nothing else. In the meantime, even today, that I speak to some girls today that were in the dormitory that were older, they didn't know really what was going on, what the whole setup was with the government. Until we got older, did we realise really what the government was doing at the time, and in separating and having all these strict rules and regulations. We hardly ever saw white faces. I remember when I was small, we used to run away and hide because we were so frightened of seeing white faces. I think too is because the dormitory and you weren't allowed out of the gates. Everyone would run and hide, I remember that. And we'd have some tourists, I guess, that would come and have a look at Aborigines. I suppose it was like an entertainment thing. I remember how we'd be watching and we'd be peeping around the corner, and then these people would have things, in their hands, and we'd think, I wonder what they've got. And what they would do then is they would throw these things in the ground, and we'd run out to have a look, and they'd throw either money or they'd throw lollies, but most times they'd come and just throw money, and it would be thrown into the dirt. Of course, we don't see money. We don't have anything to do with money, so we'd be all grovelling around in the dirt and pick up money, and they'd be just standing up and taking photos and all that.
Up there in the government, in the parliament and that, we have people up there representing Australians. A lot of them, I think, don't have no idea of how Aboriginal people live, the real history of the Aboriginal people. Yeah? And they're making decisions and that for us. They have no idea. There should be Aboriginal people up in there because they know they live that life. They know all the hurt. We would like history to be told in the classrooms. You have to start from the little ones. We want the Aboriginal side of history. I went through school, I didn't even know our history. We learnt all about the early explorers and all that. We didn't know what they did to our people. Yeah. So we would like to see history changed through our school systems, and just the Australian government and that recognise us, and the Australian people. My father, he was born at Daintree, and what they do when you're born, they take your umbilical cord and they hang it in the tree beside that hut, or bury it in the ground beside the hut, and that's to say that that's your land, your place. That's where you come from. So you always have feelings to go back to that place. And that's where we get our land rights from. Like our people, Australian people can't understand why we want that land. Why do we want to go back there? It's now a farming land, but that's because we have feelings for that place. That place means something to us. It means that's a special place, a story place, or it's where you were born.
I suppose in myself I have forgiven because I feel, I've overcome all that, you know. I've learned to. I've put myself through some programs, and now I tell the history as it was. I don't try and change anything, you know. And I feel anyway that the people need to hear exactly what went on. But some of the dormitory girls carry scars today of what happened to them. I have one of the girls around here who showed me her scar on her back. And it's still there. And all it was that she liked this boy and wanted to see this, you know, she was in love and wanted to see this boy. They were only young, and she got a belting. Yeah, and it's on her back. She's carried all these years. And when I feel sorry for the girls, you know, I do, because I feel that they're carrying all this with them and haven't really done anything about it but stooped to alcohol. Whereas I guess we were brought up in a non-alcohol home, right? And I would like to see something done for them, really, yeah.
Hey, this is a copy of our certificate of exemption. My mother and father had to apply for this, and this was to be free from being under the Aboriginals Preservation and Protections Act. Okay, before they received these exemption tickets, they were they more or less had no rights to do anything. They couldn't travel to Cairns. They couldn't go from Mossman to Daintree. They couldn't do anything. They were, this was a government law that came out where they were under this act, and they weren't a free person. So then they applied for this. They were given this ticket. Then they could go and travel anywhere. They could buy whatever they wanted. More or less, that act gave our people absolutely no rights. They had no rights to... my dad wanted to go and buy some land, and he was told, no, you can't, you're Aboriginal. So instead, with the money, he went and bought a car. Yeah. And I remember that car as clear as day. But I was only very small. I was only 5-6 years old. Yeah, so back then Aboriginals had no rights. Okay, and that's why, like today, Australian, the wider community, they can't understand why we fight for rights, we fight for land rights. They have no idea. A lot of people have no idea where we come from. Why are we doing it? They say we're just troublemakers. They say we should never have gotten an education because we've caused trouble. Okay. They would prefer us to be dumb and silly and stay back and say nothing and just give what they dish out to us. Yeah. How it used to be. Yeah.
J'ai la certitude de revenir dans ce pays, qu'importe quand. Un premier lien s'est créé. Il me reste une rencontre à faire. CJ, un guide aborigène de Mossman lui aussi, m'aborde et me propose un dîner en sa compagnie. Il m'explique que selon la tradition aborigène, chaque individu a des missions à accomplir. La sienne aujourd'hui, c'est de témoigner devant la caméra. Je ne suis pas surpris. Je ne demande même pas à CJ de quoi il veut me parler. La porte est grande ouverte.
You never get a Dreamtime story from one person. Dreamtime story is like a circle. It goes around like that. One person has one information, the other one has the next part, the other one has the other little bit like that, the other one has the next bit like that. And by the time you tie it all up together like that, you got the complete story. It's very, very hard to take that spirit away from Aboriginal people. You know, you just... Because the way we are, it's just the way we've been down to, 30, 40,000 years, no matter what, right up to modern time, The land itself is one of the biggest healers to Aboriginal people. The value of the land is it's something that not even the Western world can put a price on it, you know. Because the land to us is everything. It's a spirit. It owns us. It needs us. It feeds us. It connects us. It gives us energy, and it heals us. Does everything for us, you know. And even though we might have nothing material or anything like that, we have everything. Because as long as our feet are just planted in the ground, that's it. You know? Like in my life, when I was 20 years old, I had a curse put on me by an old man, and he came all the way down to Mossman to say, hey, I got a message for you. And I said, hey, why me? You know, there's heaps of other young fella around there. Just leave me alone, old man. You know, I showed no respect for him, you know. I'm more or less telling him to go to hell. So this old man said, hey, you speak like this to me, and he said, I'm going to put you into the ground. 2 weeks' time, I'll be spitting on your grave. He said, I'm going to teach you a lesson. So he put a curse on me there for 2 weeks. I was brought up pretty Western. I was brought up with religion. And I thought I had a pretty powerful mind, you know. I thought I could block him out and say, you know, hocus pocus. But his curse, what he put on me was like that, was driving me down there, put me into the ground. A couple of days later, I found out I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. Every time I tried to eat food, I used to vomit. And every time I'd lay down at night trying to sleep, I can hear the chanting coming to me. Just like he's going to come and pull your soul out. Just to wake up like that, you know. Like that, looking for the light. Then I knew that this old man wasn't just nobody. Powerful man. So he kept coming to me like that at night, and it's driving me crazy. And then at the time, I was drinking at the time too, and I was thinking, oh well, this is, you know, I was blaming the alcohol, you know, for the side effects and all that sort of thing. And I came in to see the doctors in here, and they took my blood test, urine test, everything. They couldn't find anything wrong with me. Then when I go out in daytime, I used to go back home like that. When I went there like that, he was still coming to me in daytime. Every time I'd sleep daytime, he'd come in there trying to rip my soul out. And I was getting weaker and weaker. It was draining me, you know. The chanting was going louder and louder. Suicide was the way out, you know. But plenty times, just killing myself. But every time I think like that, I see the old man coming to me like that, like a big image, you know. Like a big photograph, like a, you know, saying, I'm here, you come to me, you know. So he sort of gave me 2 weeks to live. So I went back, and there was only about a day left, and I went back in, and when I went back in, coming to this town, he was there waiting for me. He knew I was going to be there that day, and I didn't know what to think, you know. I said, how did this man know that I was going to be there that day? And he said, you're sick, eh? And I said, yeah. I said, oh man, I'm sorry for what I did. So I started apologizing. Started crying. And he said, I could finish your life here, right here now. And I said, look, I'm only 20 years old. I don't want to die. So he had 3 more healers there with him. They were pretty young too, and they were pretty edgy, you know. They were really nervous. They was asking the old man, they saying, look, can we come? Can we help him? Can we join in? Can you teach us, you know? He said, well, come with me. So they blindfolded me, and they took me aside. And held my head up in the air like that, and had my hand behind the back, and could feel them walking around, touching my body, you know. Feel like a twitch here, and a twitch there, and a twitch here, and a twitch there, and then all of a sudden I passed out into like a coma. And when I passed out there like that, I could hear this big heart beating, you know. Boom, 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 boom. And I was saying to myself, hey, I'm dead. I'm dead, I must be dead. But I can't be dead, because I can hear this chanting in the background, and I can hear these creeks running in the background, you know. And I can hear this big heart beating, you know. And when I looked through there like that, I could hear the chanting of the old man. And then when I looked through like that, it was like a mist But when I looked through all that, I could see all my grandmothers and that walking through there, walking through the rainforest. And when I looked through beyond that, there like that, I seen a little boy there just following them, maybe about 8 or 9 years old. You know? When I looked, then I realized that little boy was me. So I went right back to my childhood in Daintree. When I seen that, then all the emotions started in my body, you know. All the feelings start to come back in. You know? I love my people. I love my land. I love my grandmother. And behind that was that old man, the big smile on his face, like God, you know, like unconditional love, you know. Saying, you know, this is where you belong, boy, you know. You don't belong up here in the ego and the Western world. You belong back here where your people were, you know, his bird. So I looked and all these emotions, and I started crying, and I love you, old man, I love my people, and came back around again. It was like a breath of life, you know. They took the rag off me like that. When I opened my eye there, the old man was standing up in front of me there. I cried like a little baby to him. He said, this is who you are, you know. He said, you get back to your heart, and he said, you get back down to the ground, and you stay with your people now for the rest of your life. Don't ever think you're better than us. You're one of us. And that's one of the most powerful experiences that I've ever had, you know. But even after that, I bump into a lot of other strange things, like very, very powerful men just traveling through. One came like a whirlwind, stood up behind me, you know. I was looking this way and I was looking that way there. And I said, hey, where did you come from? Because I looked this way here and I looked that way there and I couldn't see you coming. And he came behind me, see? So I tried to look around like that and see him. He said, no. He said, when you look around very, very steady, you know? And you look for my feet, you look at my feet and you come all the way up here. But when you get to the solar plex here in the middle of my tummy, he reckoned that's where you stop. He said, you don't try and look at my face. You're gonna look at me like that, you're gonna be paralyzed. So that wasn't right. So I started from down there. I could see this coming up, but I was getting goosebumps, you know. As soon as I got far as here like that, I could see all this light coming out like crystal, like a crystal ball just going like that. But being a human being, you know, curiosity, I went like that. I went up, tried to go a little bit further. When I went up like that, he paralyzed me. Then he said to me, boy, I told you not to look. He said, I gotta go now. He said, I'll wake you up when I'm down here. And I could see him moving. But when he was moving, it was just like this little circle of wind that was going around like that. It was like a little mini tornado traveling down like that. Then when he got a distance down there like that, I came back around to it. I got the biggest fright. I let it the biggest scream, you know. Now this was man, a fully initiated man, you know, a lawman just traveling through. See, a lot of Europeans think they understand Aboriginal people. But to understand us, you got to go into the subconscious. You got to get back into the dreaming. You got to get right back into the earth here before you can even try to come out. But you got to have respect for that knowledge too. You know, there's our forces up there that are a lot stronger than any of us. You know, they're our ancestors. You know, they're the ones that either died or moved on before us, and they're still up there. That's why it's a very empty, a very shallow world sometimes, you know, like I feel about me, you know. Because I got this yearning to have all this power and knowledge that these old people have, and a lot of them have out there, what they can do, you know. How they can leave their body and do an astral travel anytime they want. And you look at him like that, you said, oh, look at that silly old man there, he's nothing. Look at him. But his connection to the spirit world, so strong, out of this world. You know, that's pretty amazing, you know. Everybody in this whole planet, all they gotta do is be simple and love nature and in tune with the environment, and I'm pretty sure, you know, it's as close to heaven as you can get. So simple. You don't have to be in a big group or something personal that you want to feel with the environment around you. Whether you sit underneath a tree, whether you go and sit down under or beside a waterfall, you know, ask yourself, where do I belong, you know? And when you do love your environment and everything around you, well, you know that you are connected. And this is what the Western world has to feel, have no fear of being alienated from us, you know? They come over here now and they just open up their hearts and they show respect for this land. And then they'll see us in the light then. They can look at all the negative side, they can look at all that, the drunken ones, you know, the ones you see in the park, things like that. But you get those same ones you see in the park, they're like that now, and you take them out in the bush, they're like that, and you got no food around. Who's gonna show you what to eat? It's gonna be those ones. You know? As long as they're there with that land, that's it.
J'ai fait 2 promesses avant de partir. La première était de faire ce film. La deuxième est de revenir en Australie, passer un moment en compagnie d'amis aborigènes, sans caméra. Une invitation à marcher dans le bush sans déclencher le rire du kookaburra.